Don't know why it's not working. Okay. Well, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads. I'm your host, McHugh, and doing these live episodes, getting more into these live episodes, as I should say. And I think all of you are pretty have been pretty. If you've been following the channel, you're pretty aware of we are getting committed back to doing these live episodes, which is one of those things where we just we try to do it more, and it's gonna be one of those things where it can be difficult at times because the baby's coming and all these other factors going on in my life. So just be patient with me as I try to navigate this and the whole doing the live thing more often. My intent is to be able to do the live when baby Elijah comes, and so a lot more because it's just going to be me, meaning it's just going to be, I'm not going to be doing other episodes. So I will, if I do have a chance to do an episode, gosh, good Lord, I'm such a child. If I have an opportunity to do an episode, I will be doing it, of course, when time permits it. But that being said, getting right into this episode, I lied. Let me first say, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. We appreciate it. Share this with your friends. It means a lot to us because, the goal here is, of course, to grow the channel, to spread the message. And I think the message here that we have, that Mediocre Dads has taken on is a message that a lot of people need to hear. And new things are developing and coming soon, but I think those who have been committed viewers will understand and know when it comes, why we make that transition to what we did and where we are going, or the direction in which Mediocre Dads is trying to go. Without further ado, kind of getting right into this though, I want to go over this article. And so the article is called "Stay-at-Home Dads Are Being Left Out the Parenting Conversation." Now, right off the bat, let me first and foremost tell you guys, I don't hate stay-at-home dads, and I don't think that if you're a stay-at-home dad that you are less of a man or not doing the thing in which you're supposed to be doing, right? Because here's what I will say. I think that as men and as fathers, we are called to be providers for our family and of our homes. That does not mean that mom can't go work or shouldn't go work. But I think that dads ultimately and fathers, hey, one of the biggest things that we need to commit to is being providers, and and making sure that our kids and our families have what they need. And at the end of the day, if they don't have those things, I think it does fall on you as a man. It falls on you as a man to make sure that those things those things are acquired. Wow, what the heck just happened here? Sorry, I can see my screen, so I know what's going on here, but it just went to it just jumped to another one of the scenes. Anyway, sorry about that. So I do think you guys as men, we should be providers. I do think that it's essential as men that we step up and we take on the brute or the brunt of the okay. Sorry guys, my thing is whacking out right now. We take on I think it's our responsibility to take on the roles of the fatherhood and of being providers and making sure. I don't think y'all can hear me. Holy crap. I don't know what's going on. My thing is bugging out right now. Literally, it just starts bugging out. uh, I don't know how long you couldn't hear me for, but anyway, man, I think men should be providers. I think that men should be the ones going out, getting jobs, doing the hard stuff, doing the work, because I think at the end of the day that it's on us as men to make sure that we provide for our families. Uh, now that doesn't mean that that your wife can't work or won't work and whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, if something were to happen, that the sole responsibility is on you. Now, you and your wife are in a partnership. This is a team effort, and I think that you can call on your wife to help if need be. But leaning on your wife as the sole provider to me can be in a lot of ways is goes against our innate roles as men, but also I think it goes against what God as men, what God has called us to do, and that was to go out and to be the providers, to be the ones who brought home the kill or the food, if you will, and to make sure that the house was was set up or was taken care of in the sense of like you had the shelter. Um, I know a lot of people in today's society will want to hate me for this because because of what's been going on in our culture today, but I'm not heavily one of those. I think it's called red pill or something, where those dudes who want to just bash women or something. But I think that men have a responsibility, and I think that we are failing our responsibility, and I think we need to step up. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but it's nothing new. But I think it's essential again that men, you have to step up, because if you're not stepping up, and if something happens and like you're I don't know, God forbid, say something that you go behind on rent or your mortgage, and then you get evicted from your home, that's on you, right? Like that's not on, hey, my wife was working and she wasn't working enough hours. No, that's on you. So anyway, going back to this article, and if I can get this thing to do what I want it to do. So stay-at-home dads being left out. So with society still conditioned to regard men primarily as the breadwinner, what's the reality like on the ground for dads who take on most of their childcare? Charlotte Cripps, who has two young daughters herself, finds out why so many men still balk at bringing up baby and talk to those who have taken the plunge. Now, I will say I had a guy on the podcast, and I was looking for his stuff. I think it's something coffee with dad. I think, oh man, if you see this, I'm sorry I forgot your podcast. I remember his long beard, and he's such an amazing dude. But anyway, if you do see this, I'm sorry I forgot the name of your podcast. It's something coffee with dad. Bearded gosh, I think I can't remember. Anyway, he's a stay-at-home dad, and me and him spoke, and I never said anything degrading to him, and I would never do that because I think he's an awesome dude, and I understand for him what it meant for taking on the role of a stay-at-home dad. And he's been doing a phenomenal job, and him and his wife have had that agreement, and they do work, and he does pick up on odd-end jobs to make sure that ends do meet and things are taken care of, right? So like I would never bash him or in any ways, because I think he's an example of how as fathers we should be. If that's what that dichotomy is going to look like in our home, and whatnot. So going on with the story here, it says when a dad friend was made redundant and took on full-time childcare duties, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. Overnight, the adrenaline rush with working with finance was replaced by monotony of sticking on a wash or finding the lost PE kit. The family usually had a nanny, but to save money, he stepped in and thrust himself into the mum circle as a result. At the school gates, he would listen as we gossiped away and worried about the juggle. And at one play day, he even ended up mowing my lawn and cutting my manky sofa with an axe so I could get it out to the door. Okay, this wasn't your average play day. I already think this story is kind of weird, in my opinion. But right off the bat, okay, so this story, this article from the Independent, this this guy, they had a nanny to save money. So what was he doing before? Okay, so when I read off this right off the bat, I immediately think, okay, so this guy was obviously not, they were doing well for themselves, and he was doing like a kind of a more of an entrepreneur style lifestyle. And so I don't think by any means he was doing this by whatever. So let me kind of go down here. Yet, although the number of dads leaving the workforce to look after their children in the UK rose by a third from 2019 to 2022, according to the Office of National Statistics data, stay-at-home dads are still very much in a minority, which I think they should be. House husbands currently represent 1.7% of all men living with dependent children, compared to 13.9% of women in the equivalent category. Again, it is still an extremely countercultural thing for a man to be a stay-at-home father, says Dr. Jeremy Davis from the Fatherhood Institute, a charity for publishers research on fathers and lobbies for them for taking in greater account in family life. Government policy, argues, has failed to catch up with the fact more families want fathers to be more involved with childcare. Early learning centers do nothing to engage with father. As a result, often fathers do not realize how important they are because there's nothing to disrupt the message that it's all about mom. Well, I will tell you this in that regard. I do agree, right? Like in society, if you see dad dropping off kid, immediately the conversation is, oh, what happened to mom? Is she sick? Where's the kid's mother's at? Or even in some cases, you're patted on the back and you're commended, like, good job, stepping up, dad. Oh, you're babysitting. You know, I hate that term, babysitting. I'm the kid's father. These are my kids. I'm not babysitting. My kids are with me. You know, and so I think it's so strange that we as a society that wants to be so accepting, we so quickly still are not accepting of dads being the ones dropping off kids at school, picking up kids from school, bringing kids home, or bringing kids their lunch, or doing something that is traditionally what moms would do, as if mom wasn't there. Now, in some cases, mom isn't there, so dad has to do it all. But still, what I'm trying to talk about, I guess what I agree with this part is of this article is the fact that it's still, men are still looked down upon as for doing simple dad duties. But then if you were to get divorced, then it's like, oh, you're God forbid someone gets divorced, right? But if they were, then all of a sudden it's you're a piece of crap dad, step up, you need to do all these things, but you were doing all these things beforehand. Gosh, what a hypocrisy in a lot of ways. So the UK's, again, I'm in the US, so these are the UK's numbers, but I think I like the story because it's a recent story. The UK's statutory paternity leave offer is the worst in Europe, and it's almost the worst in the world. Yes, Dr. Davis is part of a campaign for all UK fathers have the right to 6 weeks well-paid leave in their baby's first year at a minimum. Currently, fathers get 2 weeks paternity leave paid. Okay, hold on. 2 weeks? I'm sorry. How can I, as a father, right, be expected to show up, be the dad, do all these things that moms want dads to do, which I don't think some of these things that they want us to do is above and beyond or extraordinary. I think it falls in line with what we're supposed to be doing as fathers. But then how come when I look at this article, right, when I read this, how is it that we are still expected to do all of the things, all of these things, but then we only get the 2 weeks, in the UK, they're only getting 2 weeks. Let me tell you guys, I'm getting more than 2 weeks. Okay. The Army is going to give me, and this is not necessarily a plug for the Army, but if it's something that you think is, that you would like to, you think is awesome and want to you think the benefits are worth it, by all means, join the Army. Go see your local recruiter. Tell them Staff Sergeant Wilcox sent you. I say that because, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But if for real though, I think that 2 weeks after the birth of your child, understand, we're giving now the moms get 6 weeks that's the first 6 weeks is for recovery, depending where you work. So in the military we get 12 12 weeks for the non-birth giving parents. So for me, for my wife who gives birth, obviously who's the one giving birth, if she were in the Army, she would get a lot more time than me, but she gets so she would get 6 weeks of what they call convalescent leave, which is obviously that's the 6 weeks of healing after giving birth. If you have a natural birth, if you have a C-section or something else, or whatever the case might be, then obviously then there's more time that they're giving, because obviously that there's more recovery time, because God forbid there was other things that took that happened within that. But anyway, standard regular birth, right? You get 6 weeks, and then on top of that, they get 12 weeks for of leave, if you will, on top of the 6 weeks. So like, you're talking about a good chunk of change of leave of where they get to spend the time and grow and develop with their kid. Now, obviously, I know there are some moms out there that will think that time is still too short and that's absurd. And that's a topic for another time. But when I first joined the Army, we were only getting 10 days. 10 days. We got 10 days to spend with our newborn, and then we were expected to be right back at work, as if we didn't have a kid. And then it bumped up to 21 days, and then they changed it to 12 weeks. And I will say the 12 weeks thing was a huge blessing in disguise, because I think that like, honestly, this is I think it's an incentive for parents to start having more kids, but two, also I think it's I know it sounds ridiculous, but I do think it's an incentive. I think it's an incentive to do so. But then also I think it gives the father the opportunity time for that bonding time with their children in such a young age. It's such an imperative thing when kids are so young. We talk about the skin to skin, what the moms do. And I think that, in the hospital, there are a lot of fathers who do the skin to skin as well, because, they want their babies to be familiar with them. And, it's one of those, it's a beautiful moment. For those who are fathers who have been in the birthing room as their wives are giving birth, and, the baby comes out, and you're just like full of joy, and you see this beautiful little being, and you're just like, we made this thing, right? Like, and then my wife gave birth to this thing, like this little human thing. And you're just like, I don't want anything to happen to this thing, because I'm so precious. And, you feel like you could just crush them in your hands. Not that you want to, but again, it's just like any misstep or mismovement, you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to hurt you. And then you realize after 10 days, and especially if anybody who knows, has a baby, but the first 10 days, truthfully, the baby's sleeping, you're holding the baby on and off, right? But the baby's sleeping, eating, and going to the bathroom. That's it, right? And so when I first joined the Army and they only got 10 days, it was kind of like, 10 days, wow. This is kind of ridiculous, right? And then they bumped up 20. I was 21. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit more reasonable. But then 12, I'm like, this is where I'm going to preach this. I think that 21 is the perfect amount of time. But again, reading the story, and when they're talking about the UK, they only gave them, 2 weeks. This is not enough time for fathers to spend more time with their kids, right? But then this leads to what fathers will do, where they're just like, okay, I'm going to work my butt off to have all these extra days of leave, so I can take more time with my family, so I can be there for my wife, so I can be there for my new child, like my newborn, and I want to spend this time with them. Reading this article can be upsetting. Let me see if I can go back to it though, because I want you guys to see. So they simply couldn't afford it. So I'm going to read this part right here, and my thing is not doing what I want it to do. Okay, so it says, get research from the charity Pregnant Then Screwed has found that 3 of the 5 fathers, 63.7%, took 2 weeks or less paternity leave following the birth of their most recent child. This is despite only 18% of the UK population believing that 2 weeks or less paternity leave is enough. Gosh, man. 18%? Oh, excuse me. For all the obvious domestic and familial benefits of paternity leave to family life, 70% of fathers who only use part of the paternity leave entitlement said they simply couldn't afford to take unpaid leave. This current offer sends a clear message that fathers are not really valued and supported, says Dr. Davies. I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think this shows you that fathers they're not important in the minds of a lot of these people. And it hurts, and then you wonder why men have a higher suicide rate. Then wonder why men have a higher they die sooner, right? Because we are constantly working our butts off, driving to provide for our kids, and to only be told like you're doing what you should be, which I think that statement within itself is correct, but give these fathers more time to spend with their kids, their newborns. Like I could not imagine having the time that I did and not having that time with both of my daughters when they were first born. I could not imagine that. Like, when my first daughter was born, I only got the 21 days. I ended up taking more leave, but still, like, I only got the 21 days. And, oh, man, I missed her. The first day I went back to work, I missed her. Oh, my family's home. Let's see. I'm gonna read some of this other part of this article, and then I'm gonna wrap this up here. Sorry, I'm trying to read. Let's get down here. Okay, so of course, many of the problems male carers experience are ones nearly all mothers had since time immemorial: the lack of time for oneself, exhaustion, falling off the career ladder due to childcare obligations, patronizing assumptions. When I first went on maternity leave, I had a few comments from people telling me how lucky I was, as if looking after a newborn baby was only one long lazy holiday. Yet perhaps perceptions are starting to shift. Tom Bailey, 47, at NHS speech and language therapist who lives in northwest London, is just about to take a plunge to become a stay-at-home dad for his two daughters, 4 and 2. It's a financial decision and once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to spend time with the girls, he says. So I think, and again, I think men should be providers. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, if you're going to take the leap to go be a stay-at-home dad, I think you always should have something in the background helping out, with the financial obligations. I just had this thought, right? And while I can understand the counter argument to this is probably going to be, okay, if mom's not working though, if mom's staying at home, is she not providing? She is providing. She provides nurturement. She's nurturer. She is she provides the love and the compassion and helps the kids every single day. And that within itself, it can be difficult, especially depending on how many kids you have. And so, but for the father to do that that I think there's an aspect of that takes away from the mom. And what I think that takes away is the gentleness. I don't think, gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I don't think that men have the capacity to be nurturers and gentle parents and loving parents the same way, in the same role that moms do. I think that because I think innately as humans, as creations from when God first created us, I think that mothers have this capacity to love these children more. And here's why: because they came from them. These small children, these children that we know that we have, they grew up, they blossomed in our wife's womb, and then they came from them. And then the whole time they were kicking, they were moving, they felt kids have this attraction, this love for their parents, their mom, because you cannot take away the thing that was, hey, you were formed inside my womb. Where fathers, we have to create this bond from the moment when they come out of this womb. Now, obviously, there's a part of that, but there's some studies that say you can do that from the outside. I'm not here to get into that. What I'm here to say is, when the baby comes out of the womb, that is when you can really, 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 really. That's when you really start creating this bond for these with your children, and and it's harder because if you're, especially if mom's breastfeeding, well, kids always are going to go to mom. Oh, mom, because it's the comfort that they have. They're so used to being the warmth. They felt mom's warmth in body before so that's why I go back to when I said in the beginning is when you do the skin to skin with dads, the kid is able to form to you and mom, and where it's a lot easier to form that bond. And when you form a bond with your kids, man, that bond is unbreakable. It's so unbreakable. I love it. I love it. It might have seemed sporadic to you guys, but I wanted to read this article to you guys, but I really wanted to talk about some of the things within this, in the fact that I think that dads should be providers. That's just my opinion. That's how my family does, and that's how I'll always be doing it. I think that men should be providers. I think that there's such thing as taking a hiatus for a while, where you say maybe wife is working and you be the stay-at-home dad for a little bit. But I don't think this should be a permanent role. I think that at one point mom should come back, and especially depending if your kids go to school or whatever, you can figure that out what that looks like for y'all. But I think at the end of the day, it's on that burden should be on the father's shoulders. Not on the shoulders of the mom, of the wife. Number two, I think that dad should have more time off for when the wife gives birth, because I think that bond is just as essential and important as the bond that mom makes. If not more, if not harder to do, especially because mom grew that baby in the womb, so that baby will all have that connection, that attachment to mom. And then number three, guys, being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. Because I think that whether you're a mom or a dad, that you cannot be a mediocre parent. You have to step up. You have to lead your family. You have to direct your family and be there. The biggest thing is your presence and spending time with them. So that's all I got, guys. I'm going to go ahead and get off here because my kids are home, and I'm going to go spend some time with them. But I'll catch y'all later. Thanks again for joining us. And as I said, being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. Mediocre Dads out.